Hey everybody, Mark Allen here. Welcome back to Shed Talks. Winter is coming. This is the perfect time of year to set your intentions, to know why you're going to go train another year, why you're going to race another year, to have that purpose, to have that vision of what it is that you're after that has importance to you. I used to do this before every season, before I would really start back in training. I would be doing my off-season training, the light stuff, just to keep me connected to what it was actually going to be like when I went into it full bore. And I would come up with the reason, the main goal for the year. Early in my career, that was to win Ironman. In 1989, I won it for the first time. In 1990, I won it for the second time. In 1991, I won it for the third time. In the winter of 1992, I was in my off season and I was trying to think, okay, what is my reason for racing? Is it going to be to win another Ironman? And I thought, that would be a great purpose. A lot of the reasons that I was racing was also just to try to see if I could get better. Those two things combined really were motivating me. January 1st, I started back with my real training, the real committed training, not just the off-season training, which a lot of you are in right now. And again, setting these goals now, after your season is done, before you really start back into the serious training, is the perfect time of year to set your intentions, to set your goals, to know why you're going to be going out there again. And again, doing a little bit of training will help connect you to the reality of what you're asking yourself. If you're sitting on your couch and you're thinking, I want to go do an Ironman this year, and you've never done one, that's very different than when you're out there on your first runs and you're going, okay, I want to do an Ironman. What is this going to really take? So anyway, in the January of 1992, I had kind of set my intentions for that season. It was to go back to Kona, try and win a fourth title there. It was also to see if I could just get a little bit better. I started training in January. I made it through February. It was March 21st, the last day of winter. I went out for a long ride. It was a weekend day. I wasn't into doing it. It was in San Diego. It was cold. It was cloudy. The wind was blowing. I just wasn't in the mood. I was kind of tired. 15 miles into the ride, I went through an intersection and I was hit by a truck turning the opposite way across traffic. I slammed into the truck. I went up on the hood. Somehow, amazingly, instead of going underneath the truck, I fell down on the ground, popped up immediately thinking, I'm okay. But immediately as I popped up, I heard this big crackle in my collarbone, and I realized I'd broken it. I went to the emergency room, laid there on the stretcher for 2 hours. Finally, I asked someone, hey, is anybody going to look at me? And it was a doctor, and she said, we thought you'd been dismissed already. Nobody's seen you yet? So 2 hours laying there in pain with my shoulder, with my collarbone broken, just thinking, I'm looking at probably 6 weeks without training now. You have to understand, the end of March, April, those are key critical weeks where I'm doing high volumes of training that I need to put in place then to be able to then be in the kind of shape I need to be as I go through the year, throughout the summer, and do it again in August and September. If I miss 6 weeks of key training in March and April, it's going to be very hard to make that time up. The collarbone was broken. They put me in a sling. There was nothing they could do for it, really. I went home. I was picked up. I went home. That night I was on the couch just watching a movie. It was Edward Scissorhands with Johnny Depp, movie about a guy who's really not, he's misunderstood, but he has this amazing talent for taking these shears that are his fingers and carving these beautiful animals out of bushes. But anyway, I was watching the movie. Toward the end of it, I had to go to the bathroom, so I paused it. I stood up. I went into the bathroom, and the next thing I knew, I heard this ringing, and I couldn't figure out where I was, and I looked up, and I was looking up at the toilet, and there was something wet coming down my face, and I felt it, and it was blood. I'd passed out, smashed my head on the toilet, laying on the floor by myself. There was nobody else home that night. I called my brother. He took me to the emergency room. The second trip to the emergency room in the same day. Broken collarbone, my head cut open, big gash in my head. It was like I was I was propelled into a different world. And suddenly, as I was just sitting there on the floor, laying there on the floor, kind of in shock of what had just happened, it had no meaning to me to go back and race it. I couldn't think of one reason why I wanted to race. I could not think of one reason why it would be important to go out and train again. And I was completely, suddenly disconnected for all the reasons that I had come up with to race that year in 1992. But I couldn't think of what would be next. I was in this middle realm of nothingness where I couldn't think of why I would race. I couldn't think of what I would do if I didn't race. Nothing seemed to have purpose for me. It was like I was floating in time, disconnected from everything. It was very, very disorienting. I made it home that night. Some time passed. Brant Secunda, who I had been studying shamanism with for a number of years at that point, did a couple healings on my collarbone. I was actually back training in under 2 weeks. Swimming, cycling, and running. I ended up going to Kona that year, but with a very different purpose. The reason that I finally came up with to go back and to actually train and to swim and to bike and to run, to put in all those miles, to just be as disciplined as I'd been before, was to take my sport and have it be just a practice where I used it to learn about life. I mean, we can learn so much about life, about dealing with challenges, about being patient, about doing something over and over and over to become just a little bit more perfect at it each time we do it. And that was my purpose that year. I didn't really care if I went to Hawaii and won or not. I didn't really care if I won any race. I was using my sport to perfect myself, to become a better person, to understand more about how to actually deal with life, and to just put out something because I truly loved doing it. I realized I love to swim, bike, and run. I love to go to the races, even though they're hard, even though they're challenging, there's stress, and just see what I can do. I love that, and I wanted to put that out there in the world. And that was my reason for going back to Kona in 1992. I ended up winning in 1992, in 1993, and then again finally in 1995. Those last 3 wins all came with that same purpose, to perfect myself, to just do something I had never done before, and to put it out there for the world to see. This is Mark Allen for Shed Talks. What's your purpose this year? Find it now. Winter is coming. Now is the time to find the purpose. And if it does change at some point in the future, it will be a change that will be remarkable.